Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
At first, I didn't think it was real. I woke up to this blinding light, and I was transported to another place. Pluto TV. Then I heard a voice.
Come with me if you want to live.
There were thousands of movies and shows, and they were all free.
Truth is ours.
It's just so beautiful.
On Pluto TV, free streaming of Terminator 2, Fringe, Arrow, The 100, and The X-Files may cause excitement, loss of sleep, and sudden belief in extraterrestrials. No credit cards or alien encounters necessary. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, the big winner is President Donald Trump. There were a whole bunch of primaries that took place, some yet to be called. But so far, the Trump-backed candidates are doing very, very well and defeating some nemesis of President Trump. And the big one that everybody's talking about is Thomas Massie. He, of course, has been the longtime congressman there from Kentucky, 7 terms, 14 years. And he certainly has been a Trump adversary, even though he's within the GOP. He voted for war powers, essentially trying to put a hamstring on Trump with Iran and Venezuela. Voted against aid to Israel. I would say that's a little bit of a problem. Voted against the big, beautiful bill, which would have been tax cuts for all Americans. We know that finally got through, but he has been a thorn in President Trump's side, in House Republican side. And I think a lot of people tonight are saying, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Good riddance. And the guy who beat him is a guy named Ed Galrine, a real newcomer into politics. And he's an interesting guy. He really just got involved in the race about maybe a few weeks ago, 15 weeks or so ago. But he's a new guy to politics. He's a dairy farmer, a 5th generation dairy farmer. And he's also a very heralded Navy SEAL, 4 Bronze Stars, a whole bunch of other high military acclamations, and highly decorated, very impressive guy, and a no-nonsense guy. And he says, listen, President Trump came to me and he said, I want someone who carries my agenda, but more importantly, who carries the American public's agenda. I was voted in overwhelmingly. This is the agenda. I want someone who's going to live up to the American people's expectations. And that's why Ed Galrine said he got in. And boy, that race was called pretty quickly. I was really surprised because a lot of people were saying, well, it could be fairly tight. It could drag on through the night. But no, Ed Galrine, who got President Trump's endorsement, that changed the race. That was the game changer. And it just goes to show everybody, all you poo-poo people out there who say, oh, well, Donald Trump is old news. It's Trump derangement syndrome. Let me tell you, tonight, this is clearly Donald Trump's Republican Party. He is on a roll. You look at what happened in Indiana. He won all of these primaries with the candidates that he supported. Then over the weekend, you also look at what happened in Louisiana. Bill Cassidy, who he didn't want to win because he voted against President Trump, in fact, voted for his impeachment. Remember, on the second go round, Trump said, you know what, we're going to primary you. He got ousted. And then tonight, so far, Trump has a 100% track record. So I'd say that's pretty darn good, everybody. And I guess the point is, you don't bet against the president of the United States, who is still incredibly, incredibly popular. This Ed Galrine guy came out and said, you know what? I am proud to represent America. I am proud to be endorsed by President Trump. The race was called in less than an hour from when the polls were closed. So that speaks volumes. That was a biggie, 1,000%. And this just shows that President Trump on the ballot, Yeah, guess what? He's the punching bag for Democrats because they fear him and they know how incredibly popular he is. And this was an enormous testament tonight to his power. And it is riding high, less than an hour, defeating a guy who has been there in the House in Kentucky for 14 years, knows everybody, well connected, a whole bunch of money. In fact, it was the most expensive House race in U.S. history so far. This is a stunning amount, $33 million spent just on this primary. That just shows how high the stakes are. And yet, Thomas Massie on the way out, all he did was whine and complain about President Trump, complain about the GOP. It was typical Thomas Massie, because that's why they wanted to boot him out. But here he is just a little bit ago in his, quote, concession speech, and he talked about all the money raised and talked about the fact that it's going to be sayonara for him.
Welcome to the most expensive congressional primary ever in the 250-year history of this country. It's not just the most expensive. This thing went on longer than Vietnam. It started 9 months ago, and they didn't even have a candidate, and they decided they want to take me out. I want to start by thanking the volunteers who have put so much effort into this. Some of you came from all across the country. Some of you are homegrown. I love all of you.
See ya. And guess what? This is what I found really distasteful. I've interviewed Thomas Massie a number of times. I've always, had a good relationship with him. But President Trump said it best today. He said, I don't know if he's a Republican. I don't know if he's a libertarian. I don't know what he is. Because he clearly wasn't looking out for the Republican Party and the Republican Party values. There were a number of things where he was very much against the president. He was one of those guys who said, no, we should be an isolationist. I guess we should never take out a rogue regime that might have a nuclear weapon or it's on its path clearly to it. For some reason, he thinks it's okay that they stay there. That was what he was saying. And essentially Maduro, we should keep Maduro there, who's running, drug running and terrorism and everything else and the ties to Russia and everybody else. I guess we should keep him there too. And then he was so against Israel, as I mentioned, which was really disgusting. It was like he was blaming Israel for everything. And in fact, he was blaming Jewish money for undermining his campaign. I guess Jewish Americans are not considered real Americans to Thomas Massie. And this to me is really troubling. I felt this like strain of Mondani in him. And that really bothered me when I heard him say, Israel is here. Israel's doing this. Israel's doing this. Israel's against me. Well, if you're against Israel, you can understand why they and maybe Jewish Americans might be against you, Thomas Massie. So listen to what he said. And this is what everybody is shocked about tonight. Here he is. He's in his concession speech. He's literally minutes after he gets the poll results that he has been battered and he's out. And yet on the way out, he takes a swipe at Israel. Listen to what he says about his competitor who has now clobbered him, Ed Galrine. Ed is, of course, going to go now to the general election. Now, they've won, of course, the primary because it was a handily beaten win there. It was just the two of them. So it doesn't go to a runoff or any of those other things. It goes right now to the general election. And it's probably going to be Ed Galrine who's going to be the next member of Congress because in that particular seat, Donald Trump won there 75% against Kamala Harris. That is definitely Trump country, Kentucky. They love their bourbon and they love their Trump. And they like the Derby, too. They like a whole bunch of other things, too. But it is clearly, basically his race to lose at this point. It is very unlikely that he would lose. So probably you're going to be talking to Congressman Ed Galrine. But Thomas Massie couldn't be even gracious in defeat. He clearly got clobbered, and he had to take a swipe at Ed Galrine, and he had to take a swipe at the group he guess he hates the most, and that's Israel.
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrine in Tel Aviv. I did get the call through, though. I have called and conceded the race. We've been honorable the whole time, and we're going to stay that way.
Breaking news.
I'm not sure about the honorable part, but we'll get to that in a moment. But here's some more results coming in. Congressman Andy Barr, he is going to be advancing. This is in the big race there in Georgia. This is an important one. This is for Mitch McConnell's seat, the Senate seat, because, of course, Mitch McConnell is retiring. And Congressman Andy Barr, who represents the beautiful city of Lexington, Kentucky, and he was a Trump back guy also as well. This race was like, oh my goodness, the polls closed within 5 minutes. This race was called. Congressman Andy Barr handily beating the non-Trump back candidate, which was the former state attorney general David Cameron. And Trump picked Andy Barr. And boy, did he just trounce him. Some of the latest numbers are showing 64% for Congressman Andy Barr and 28% for David Cameron. The race called literally within minutes. It was called within 5 minutes. So that is a very, very big deal. And again, that is another big Trump-backed win. And then here's another one. President Trump supported Burt Jones. He is the lieutenant general there in Georgia. And he is going to be making it to a runoff. A lot of people weren't sure where he would place or if he would place, whatever. Trump endorsed him, and he skyrocketed. So he will make it to the runoff, and we will see who it looks like right now. It's going to be him and the number two, who it's kind of weird in Georgia. It's like Democrats and Republicans. It's sort of a jungle group, a jungle primary, kind of like they call it elsewhere in California. But what's interesting is that Brad Raffensperger, who is the Georgia Secretary of State, remember famously, who went up against President Trump during all the election stuff and everything else. He was clearly a Trump nemesis. It's like maybe he was on the phone with Thomas Massie every day. I'm just kidding. But the two birds of a feather flock together. But another big Trump win. Not only does Burt Jones, the person he was supporting, go to the runoff, but also Raffensperger, by the way, came in third. So he's not making it to the runoff. So that means that Brad Raffensperger, who has definitely been a Trump nemesis, is out. And the Trump candidate there will continue into the race. That's for the Georgia governor's race. Now, the other big thing today, and this just happened, boy, has this been a busy day. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, who we've talked to here on the show, well, he got a big endorsement from President Trump. And that was a huge one. That is, of course, in the Texas Senate race against John Cornyn, who's been the incumbent there for many, many years. And John Cornyn ran into ire with not just President Trump, but his base over a number of his votes as well. He wasn't like a Thomas Massie, but you could tell President Trump was trying to figure out, should I endorse him? Should I endorse Ken Paxton? Ken Paxton, many people believe, is much closer to MAGA and MAGA values, very much more like President Trump. On the other hand, you got John Cornyn, the incumbent, but it was a very hotly contested race. And it is still going on because the primary for that is next Tuesday. But President Trump said, no, I'm going to make an endorsement. It's interesting because John Cornyn just came out yesterday and he was actually saying that it was his impression that nobody was going to be endorsed in the race, that President Trump was going to kind of stay out of it, which meant good news for John Cornyn, although some people were really pushing, like John Thune, to get Cornyn endorsed. So a lot of people didn't really know who he was going to endorse. You heard a lot of experts in the last few hours say, I don't know. And then a lot of people thought, well, maybe he might stay out of it. But President Trump has decided to endorse Ken Paxton, who has been leading of late in the polls. And in the last 2 or 3 weeks, you look at the trajectory of that race. At one point, he was kind of down quite a bit when he first got in. Everybody thought, oh, he's not going to be able to punch through the numbers that Cornyn had. Then he started escalating. And in the latest numbers, he has been either equal or above John Cornyn, clearly on the rise. And Cornyn has been going down in the numbers. So President Trump sees that. He also knows Ken Paxton very well. And he has now endorsed Ken Paxton for that very important Texas Senate race. And here is Ken Paxton just a little bit ago talking about how pivotal and how happy he was at this Trump endorsement.
It is so good to be here. I guess I'm a little late. I was waiting on a little announcement. Did y'all see that? Well, first of all, Carissa, thank you for being here. She's so amazing. You are so blessed to have such a great state representative. And I'll tell you what, I'm so honored to have President Trump's endorsement. His endorsement, in my opinion, is the most significant endorsement in my lifetime. So when he endorses, it has a tremendous impact. We're already doing really well, but certainly I have so much respect for the president and so appreciate his endorsement. And I think it creates a slight bit of momentum, don't you?
Wow, that is a big, big deal. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, now getting the biggest endorsement, as you just heard, of his life. And now the primary for that race, that will be a big test now of President Trump's endorsement. That is going to be next Tuesday. But everybody, of course, talking about tonight. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And we'll take your calls when we come back here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Go ahead, Sal, your thoughts.
Oh, hi, Rita. It's Al.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Al, go ahead.
Thanks, Rita. Yeah, Rita, I just wanted to say quickly, Attorney General Paxton in Texas to get President Trump's endorsement is unbelievable. I mean, Ken Paxton stood by President Trump in his darkest days when he was indicted with these frivolous charges by the past Attorney General and the Biden inner circle. So I'm glad that the president rewarded Ken Paxton with his endorsement because he was loyal when a lot of people were jumping off the ship. So I hope Ken Paxton wins. It's going to still be a close primary next Tuesday because it's Cornyn's last stand. But Paxton, I hope this gets him over the top.
And Al, the thing is too, the whole background of who he's going to be going up against if Paxton wins the primary. First, he's got to win the primary because, as you mentioned, Cornyn's been there a long time. But whoever faces off is going to face off against this crazy guy, James Tallarico. That guy says there's 6 sexes, not 2. There are 6. He, him, her, there, it, we. I mean, it's like this guy is like loony lefty, right, Al?
He really is. I mean, I can't see him winning the lone state. It's changing, but he definitely, I can't see him winning as senator. The president will get involved in October and get the Republican over the top.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance that it is going to stay a Republican seat. Like you said, it's not guaranteed, and there will be a lot of money on the Democratic side.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Brisbane, California, where a malnourished young sea lion was rescued after it was found crossing a road in California. The police department said an off-duty officer was on his way to work when he spotted the young sea lion. The young sea lion, since dubbed the name Sierra, was heading toward the northbound Highway 101 ramp, which is a very busy area. So the officer, concerned for the safety, of course, of both the sea lion and motorists, used his personal vehicle to help slow and block traffic. The officer then contacted the police department personnel for assistance, and he waited for backup. They safely contained Sierra, the sea lion, while awaiting the arrival of rescue personnel from the Marine Mammal Center. Implementing, by the way, they use specialized animal control equipment. The officers were able to keep the sea lion from wandering into traffic on one of the busiest freeways in America. Can you imagine? Anyway, the young sea lion finally, the mammal rescuers arrived, and they determined she was malnourished and in need of urgent care. You can imagine, because she's been out of the water for quite some time, to be almost on the highway there. The Marine Mammal Center transported the animal to their veterinary hospital, where it received treatment and rehabilitation with the goal of being released back into its natural environment. And we're so glad that Sierra, the sea lion, and the motorists are all going to be okay. And bravo to that great police officer and his quick thinking, all in a day's work for our men and women in blue. Well, we talked about Ken Paxton now getting President Trump's endorsement. And again, a very busy news night with all these primary wins that we've been talking about. Ken Paxton was elated because for a while it didn't look like President Trump was going to necessarily endorse anybody. The primary, this is against Paxton and Cornyn. It takes place next Tuesday. And here is Ken Paxton. And right away, right after he got the endorsement, he praised President Trump. You heard what he said. He said it is the greatest endorsement he's ever received in his life. And he's right, it is. But he also said, Cornyn, he says, should be clobbered in the primary. He took some swipes at his opponent in next Tuesday's primary. Here it is.
So then the question is, and I've asked this in every meeting I've been in since April the 8th of last year, whether it's 50 people, one person, thousands of people. The question is this: John Cornyn has been in office not just 24 years in the Senate, but I'm going to give him the whole 42 years. He was a state district judge. He was a Supreme Court justice for Texas. He was Attorney General. Can anybody name one significant accomplishment in those 42 years? Do you know I've never had anybody give me an answer in a year and 2 months? We've let this guy stay and represent us. Now, look, if he was in Massachusetts, I'd accept it if he was a Republican. But for Texas to not have, it's like we have one hand tied behind our back. We got Ted Cruz over here punching with his right hand. I know it's right-handed. And John Cornyn, we don't have that punch. As a matter of fact, we have just the opposite. So I've also said to people, look at any 2 weeks I've been in office as Attorney General, except for Christmas and Thanksgiving. And I guarantee you, we've accomplished more in 2 weeks, any 2 weeks, and John can pick the 2 weeks, than he's accomplished in 42 years. Now that's pathetic. As a matter of fact, last week, just last week alone, just take last week. I'll bet last week I had got more done than he got done in 42 years. Last week, we had a settlement with Texas Children's Hospital. Did anybody see that? Yeah. Historic this settlement. They're going to pay us $10 million. They fired all the woke doctors that were doing these terrible things to children, child abuse. They've agreed never to hire any of those people again or anybody like them. And guess what? They're going to start a detransitioning unit. I think the first of its kind in the country, and they are going to take care of these kids for free. And you know what? I hope that other states will do the same thing and hold these hospitals and doctors accountable the way we have in Texas.
And guess what? Some of the folks already in the Senate, you could tell, they were not happy. I think for sure some of them wanted Cornyn to be endorsed. And we know it's been reported many places that John Thune was rooting for his friend, John Cornyn, who he's known a long time. And he also felt that Cornyn would be the better person to go up against Tallarico. Again, it doesn't mean that Paxton's going to win, but you can bet with an endorsement from President Trump that helps Paxton immensely, as the results tonight clearly show. But here is John Thune, of course, the Senate Majority Leader. And when he was asked about the endorsement of Paxton by Trump, well, listen to what he said.
Given that you've spent months trying to persuade the president to endorse John Cornyn in the Texas primary, and given that the NRSC has invested heavily to help Cornyn win that primary, how personally disappointed or frustrated are you with the president's decision to endorse Ken Paxton today?
Well, I think you all know my position on this issue. I've made it very clear for months now. And Senator Cornyn is a principled conservative. He is a very effective senator for the state of Texas. And but none of us control what the president does. He made his decision about that. That doesn't change the way I feel And I am certainly supportive of, will continue to be supportive of Senator Cornyn and his reelection.
How much harder, if he made it to keep the majority, how much harder has the president's decision here made it for you? The number one job is to keep the Republican majority, given your concerns about Ken Paxton's viability as a candidate.
We look at, lots of races around the country, and the majority runs through a lot of different states. We have 24 seats up this time. The Democrats have only 9, so we've got a lot more ground to defend. We also have a couple of offensive opportunities. So, one state doesn't determine the outcome of this election, but obviously we care about every state, and we care about helping see our incumbents succeed. That being said, I feel very good about where we are. As I've said before, I think when it comes to winning elections, it starts with quality candidates. Then you've got to have a record of accomplishment to run on. You've got to have resources to get that message out, tell that story to the American people. And then you've got to have a really substantial effort to get out the vote, a ground game. And I feel confident in all those elements in all the key states where we're going to have competitive elections this year. And I'm very confident we'll hang on and maybe even expand the majority of the United States Senate, which is counter, I know, to the sort of the narrative these days. But the truth of the matter is we've got the right candidates in the right places at the right time and with the right resources. We're going to win some races.
Wow. You could just hear that. It was kind of dodging and weaving. Clearly, he's disappointed. He wanted John Cornyn, the more traditional candidate, and now Trump went with the more MAGA candidate, if you will. And boy, whoever wins the primary next Tuesday, and that is going to be definitely one for the record books. There's been a lot of money on both sides from Paxton and Cornyn, and it will be, of course, leading into Tuesday. Then you got them going up, whoever wins that one, against this guy, James Tallarico, that I was talking about. And if you think that, AOC is wacky, wait till you listen to James Tallarico. James Tallarico makes AOC look like Charles Bronson. This guy is a wackadoo. And first of all, listen to what he has to say about the border. He sounds like he deeply regrets that President Trump closed the border. And his message is, everybody, come one, come all. This is whoever wins the primary in the state of Texas, which used to be red. Now it's kind of reddish purple. It's a little bit, it depends where you talk about, but it's definitely purple in some areas. And they're very concerned about that because that's why you can't count out a crazy wackadoo like James Tallarico. I think it's more likely it's going to go to a GOP winner, but you never know. You got crazy Zoran Mondani. You got the crazy woman, Seattle mayor. You got a lot of crazy wackadoos out there. And this guy's getting a lot of funding. So take a listen. Here is James Tallarico. And this is what he has to say about come one, come all at the border.
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
A giant welcome mat. Criminals, murderers, rapists. Could you please all come in? We would love to have you in America. Donald Trump made a mistake kicking you terrible, mean, horrible people out that have multiple criminal convictions. And if you're a cartel leader, come on in. We'd love to have you in America. And then listen to this guy. This is what he says about God.
Is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
God is non-binary. Who was that? Remember, though, a couple weeks ago, guys, we had that person on who was running for, I think she was a city council member in Minnesota, and it's LBGTQZRYLY. It was like 21 letters. Even people who were all for LGBTQ couldn't even keep all the letters straight from that woman. So this guy may give her a run for her money. But listen to this, too. This is also, he's asked, tell us about how many sexes there are out there. And listen to what James Tallarico, who is the Democrat candidate, that's the guy on the Democratic side there in Texas who's going to go up against Paxton or Cornyn. Listen to this doozy.
I want us all to be aware of is that modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6, which honestly, Representative Hefner surprised me too.
With you now.
Surprised me too, because I am not well versed in this issue area. I'm not a scientist. I'm a politician, a lot worse than a scientist.
There are 6. If there's anybody out there who knows exactly the 6, I would love to hear from you, because I kind of get stuck on 2. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Sal in New Jersey on line 3. Sal, save us. Go ahead.
Good evening, Rita. Rita, as far as I'm concerned, these rhinos and these weak Republicans like John Cornyn, they're just as bad as the Democrats, because the Democrats, you could tell what they stand for. You could easily identify them. But these type of Republicans, like Cornyn and Massie and all them, they're deceptive. They talk a good game, but they trick people. So we got to be careful of those type of people.
And Sal, when you bring up especially Massie, for example, Massie seemed to always vote against Trump, always. And he kind of claims, well, the reason I was against him here was because I'm a purist and I didn't believe in X, and X being in the bill. But by him doing it, some of these bills nearly defeated, and so that's why it's dangerous, even if you take him at face value, that some of his intentions were, whatever the reasons were, it was not going to work out that way. And when you are in a tight house, which it is so razor thin right now, which is why they don't want to do votes when one person's off or one person can't make it there on time. And if you have 1 or 2 people jumping on the other side, often that's enough to sway the vote. And the other issue, too, I think about, Sal, I think about how foreign countries also look about this. I think how so many different foreign countries go, oh, wow, look, there's a Republican who is saying this about Israel, or there's a Republican who's voicing his disdain for President Trump, or this vote. It can't be a good vote if even a Republican who claims he likes Trump does X. So they're also used for like unbelievable propaganda. And you can imagine, obviously they'll use a Pramila Jayapal or an AOC or those people say, look, there's a member of Congress. But if they've got a Republican who claims he knows Trump and loves Trump, and yet on the other hand is bashing him and bashing his agenda, that is disastrous. So I agree with you, Sal. On the other hand, they also have to make sure that they win. There's a lot of factors, which is why I think President Trump in this particular case with Paxton, I think his heart was always with Paxton. I felt like from day one when I heard Paxton was in it, that was going to happen. But then on the other hand, I also thought, you know what, maybe he's looking to see also where the race goes. He was listening to John Thune. I mean, to President Trump's credit, even though he is obviously MAGA through and through, he's the founder of MAGA, he also was probably listening to a lot of different people that had a lot of different views, to his credit, watching the race. And he saw that that not only, in the Paxton Cornyn race, but particularly there, that he saw Paxton having a trajectory where right now, in many of the polls, he's even surpassing Cornyn, or at least tied. So he's also a realist, is my point, too. There were other races where I know, like in the Kentucky race, a number of them, for example, in the Senate race, he asked some people that he thought were really good, but that he thought would clog up the system to get out. He asked, I think it was Nate Morris, the businessman, to drop out of the race. So he also realizes that he looks at the numbers, he looks at who can win, what the system is in that particular state, what the polls are, what the percentages are. And so far, he has had a very, very good track record. Let's go to David in New Rochelle on line 1. David, your thoughts?
Hi, Rita. My thoughts are that President Trump should just finish the job. He can't listen to his Arab, the Saudi Arabia, and the other.
You're talking about Iran. You're talking about Iran, that he should just go in and finish it.
No, Saudi Arabia said give him, wait a little bit.
Right.
They're going to come to the table. They're not going to come to the table. I told you before, they're just trying to stay alive. When the war is over, they're all dead. They're not worried about the 70 virgins. They know they are dead walking. Just go in. President Trump, if you're listening to the station tonight,
which he does, by the way.
But
now, David, hold on, David. Let me just ask you: do you think you don't like the fact that what he waited because he listened to Saudi and Qatar and UAE, and on the other hand, you also hear President Trump. He came out today, David, was swinging, and he said, we may need to give him another big hit, meaning Iran. And he also said it could be 2 to 3 days away or maybe a week away. Let's see. But clearly the time is running out. I also applaud him, David, for at least trying. If you've got these 3 countries saying, listen, let's try. On the other hand, he doesn't want this to drag out. And I just think I agree with you that I think Iran is just buying time. I mean, they've been like pulling the rug out of every American president. But I do not believe they'll do that to Donald Trump. Final thoughts, David, your points.
Yeah, the only reason Saudi Arabia is reaching out to Donald Trump is they want to protect their oil infrastructure. That's all they care about. They don't give a crap about our country or about Donald Trump. They're just worried about that their supply will be imperiled. Their lifeline is oil. That's all they care about.
I agree with you. David, I agree with you on that. It's ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. For those Arab countries and even UAE too, even though UAE has been taking so much incoming, they definitely don't want to have, their oil crippled either. So it's an interesting moment to see that. And UAE taking more incoming than Israel even. I mean, and yet they're saying, hey, give peace a chance. But President Trump is saying, okay, I'll give you 2 or 3 days. Pull a miracle or else they will be decimated. That Iran will be pummeled. So I think we'll know, David, probably at the end of the week which way this is going. 1-800-848-9222. Everybody will continue your calls right after the break.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Tom in New Jersey, line 3. Go ahead, Tom, your thoughts.
Hey, how are you this evening?
I'm good. What do you think?
All right. This guy that was talking about 6 genders?
Yes. James Tallarico, right. The Democrat in Texas.
Yeah. Well, don't think that I'm crazy because he's got it half right. There's male, female, and I don't know if you ever heard about this. When I was a teenager, I heard about it, but I never actually saw one. It's called a hermaphrodite. It's a person that has both male and female genitalia.
That's a new one. That's a new one, Tom.
Like I said, I heard of this when I was a teenager. I don't know if it's true. Maybe you could look into it.
Well, we'll do a deep dive investigation. But let's play this one more time because he says there's 6. You're missing 3 of them. This is cut number 16, real quick.
I want us all to be aware of is that modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6, which honestly, Representative Hefner surprised me too. Surprised me too because I am not well versed in this issue area. I'm not a scientist. I'm a politician, a lot worse than a scientist.
But he says there's 6 sexes. Tom, you got to find the other 3.
Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Very Hawks baseball.
Tuesday, May 19th at 10:30 a.m., it's morning baseball. Wednesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m., have a pawsome time at Bark in the Park. Thursday, May 21st at 6:30, it's Pride Night with $5 Bud or Bud Light draft beer. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.